Welcome back. We start with the UK general elections, where the Conservative Party have won majority with over 350 seats. The exit polls had pointed towards a decisive victory for Boris Johnson's party. Details in this report.
Exit polls have suggested the Tories can get 368 seats, enabling them to produce a majority of 86 in the House of Commons. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said his government appeared to have won a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done.
Projections, but at this stage it does look as though this one nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done.
The Labour Party is trailing behind the Tories with 200 seats so far. Meanwhile, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has announced he will step down, following the party's worst electoral defeat in 84 years.
Brexit has so polarised and divided debate in this country. It has overridden so much of a normal political debate. And I recognise that has contributed to the results that the Labour Party has received this evening all across this country.
So far, the Labour Party is trailing behind the Tories by over 200 seats.
Moving on to the US, where the US Senate has unanimously adopted a resolution that recognizes the Ottoman Turkish killings of Armenians during the First World War as genocide. Turkey has condemned the vote, saying it will not help improve relations between Washington and Ankara. The legislation's co-author, Senator Bob Menendez, said the Senate has corrected the history after passing the resolution. Meanwhile, Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu called the vote a political show, saying it is not legally binding and has no validity. In a statement, Cavusoglu said the vote was a shameful example of how history can be politicized. The move has dealt another blow to the already difficult ties between Ankara and Washington. Meanwhile, the US has announced a brief pause in talks with the Taliban after an attack on an airbase in Afghanistan. The US Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, says he met Taliban leaders to express outrage at Wednesday's assault on Bagram. Khalilzad said the talks have been stopped for the Taliban to consult their leadership over US concerns. He said the group must show they are willing and able to respond to the Afghan desire for peace. The Taliban spokesperson Sohail Shaheen has also confirmed the break. Shaheen said the atmosphere of the talks was positive and both sides agreed to continue discussions after a few days. The US had renewed meetings with the Taliban negotiators earlier this month on the measures needed to find a ceasefire in Afghanistan. India's President Ram Nath Kovind has signed the controversial Citizenship Bill, turning it into an act. Earlier, the Indian Upper House of Parliament approved the Nationality Bill to grant citizenship to selected religious minorities. The notification issued by the President's office said Kovind has given his assent to the cap, so it has become an act. Opposition parties and civil society has criticized the bill as contrary to India's constitution because it excludes Muslims. The new law has triggered widespread protests in India, especially in the northeastern states of Assam and Tripura, where locals fear immigrants will endanger their position. Yesterday, 2 people were killed and several others injured by police firing on protesters in Assam. In India, the Supreme Court has dismissed petitions pushing for a review of the recent ruling in favor of building a Hindu temple on disputed land in northern Ayodhya city. A 16th century mosque was torn down by a Hindi mob in 1992 at the site. A 5-member Supreme Court bench said they have gone through the petitions and they do not find any ground to entertain them. A total of 19 petitions were filed to review the verdict in the land dispute case. Muslim petitioners said they found the verdict unfair and a majority of the country's Muslim population is against this ruling. In early November, the court gave a ruling that the Ayodhya site will be given to government-run trust for building a Hindu temple. In The Hague, Myanmar's leader Aung San Suu Kyi has asked the World Court to drop the genocide case against her country.
Thousands of Rohingya were killed and over 700,000 were forced into neighboring Bangladesh after a military crackdown in 2017. Speaking on the third and final day of the hearings, Suu Kyi said her country's justice system should be given a chance to perform. Gambia's lawyer Paul Reichler said Myanmar cannot be trusted to hold its soldiers accountable. Reichler said Myanmar did not even deny most of the accusations of extreme violence against its military. He reiterated Gambia's demand for provisional measures to restrain Myanmar's military until the case is heard in full. The court said it will issue an order as soon as possible, but gave no specific dates.
Now from the Middle East, the Libyan National Army head Khalifa Haftar has urged his forces to advance towards the center of Tripoli for a decisive battle. In a televised address, Haftar said the time has come for the broad and total assault expected by every Libyan. The LNA chief said the Libyan people have been looking forward to the advance. He said the operation will bring revolutionary changes to the country.
To all military units in the surroundings of the capital, Hour Zero has struck, the hour of the wide offensive which every honorable Libyan awaits. Our people in Tripoli have been looking forward to it ever so patiently, since they have been invaded by the terrorists.
Anti-government protesters have created a mini-state in Baghdad's Tahrir Square, completed with border guards, cleanup crews and hospitals. The demonstrators behind the idea say they've done a better job of running a state in 2 months than the government has in 16 years. This report will show you more.
When protests broke out in Iraq this October, Ahmed al-Harithi abandoned his job as a gynecologist to join the demonstrations. He soon learned to put his skills to use, coordinating with tuk-tuk drivers who ferried the wounded from the streets. Soon, doctors like him started working with pharmacists to create a mini health ministry.
To sum up, we now have small ministries in Tahrir Square, and we can form a real state with them.
Other mini ministries soon followed. Doctors take care of the wounded, artists paint murals, and others take care of security.
An Iraqi man is a soldier from childhood. It runs in the family. Either he is a military member or his brother, father or friend is. So there's no need for someone to teach us how to create a filter for security checks or how to maintain our security or provide safety to others.
Over 420 people have been killed since the protests started, with over 8,500 wounded. Earlier this month, 24 protesters were killed in a government crackdown. Despite these brutalities, these activists remain committed to peaceful means. They say their revolution is focused on building a new future, not destruction.
Chile's lower house has rejected a move to impeach President Sebastián Piñera. The president was accused of failing to safeguard human rights during weeks of rioting. The legislators tossed out the motion, saying it did not meet the constitutional threshold for removing a sitting president. Opposition lawmakers behind the impeachment bid contended Piñera failed to act quickly enough to stamp out police abuses. In October, protests began in Chile over a rise in metro fares, which quickly spiraled out of control, leaving 26 people dead. The Chilean Air Force said it has recovered human remains in the search for a plane that crashed earlier this week. The Antarctica-bound flight went missing on Monday with 38 people on board.
The head of Chilean Air Force, Arturo Merino, said there are no survivors. He said the condition of the remains show it is almost impossible for anyone to have survived. The Air Force said it will conduct forensic analysis on the remains to confirm their origin. The aircraft had disappeared shortly after taking off from the southern city of Punta Arenas. It carried 21 passengers and 17 crew members. Extreme weather conditions had complicated search efforts after the plane disappeared.
Former Bolivian President Evo Morales has arrived in Argentina and been granted refugee status. He had previously been in Mexico, where he was granted asylum after he resigned in November under pressure from the army. Argentine Foreign Minister Felipe Sola says Morales has come to stay. He said the government wants a commitment from Morales not to make political arrangements in Argentina. The former Bolivian president's arrival comes 2 days after new Argentine President Alberto Fernandez was sworn in. The US has tested a conventionally configured ground-launched ballistic missile. The test would have been prohibited under the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. In a statement, the Pentagon said the test took place at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. It said they are currently evaluating the test results. It was the second weapons test the INF treaty would have prohibited. In August, the Pentagon tested a ground-launched cruise missile with a range of over 500 kilometers. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. A Brussels court has ordered the government to bring 10 children of Belgian nationality born to ISIS fighters in Syria back to the country. The court ordered said the children aged between 7 months and 7 years must be brought to Belgium within 6 weeks. The court said if the government does not comply with providing administrative documents for the children, it will be fined €5,000 per child per day. Belgium's Justice Minister Koen Geens said the government is ready to take back the children, as long as it does not have to take in their mothers as well. The children are currently at the Al Hol refugee camp in northeastern Syria, which is under Kurdish control. The EU has reached an agreement to work for carbon neutrality by 2050. EU leaders held talks in Brussels amid pressure to commit to making the 28-member bloc carbon neutral. After the meeting, European Council President Charles Michel said reaching carbon neutrality is an important goal. The deal left Poland out of the commitment and also allowed some members to use nuclear energy in the future. Earlier, Poland, Hungary and the Czech Republic opposed the bloc's target of zero net carbon emissions. The three Eastern EU members argued move would hamper development of their coal-dependent economies. The EU's new head, Ursula von der Leyen, has placed the aim at the heart of a new Green Deal. In Nigeria, a self-taught visual artist is making edible art using different kinds of food. Her masterpieces celebrate African culture and heritage. This report will tell you more.
Meet Nigerian visual artist Hanifa Adam, who turns ordinary food into colorful art chef-d'oeuvre. Using finely blended baobab leaves, she is making a portrait of Nigerian women, complete with elaborate headgear and jewelry. The leaves she is using are locally known as kuka and are used to make soups.
I'm inspired by my personal experiences and observations of the society at large. It's usually introspective, and whenever I have a story to tell from either my own personal experience.
3 years ago, Adam started experimenting with art using leftover meals. Now she exhibits her work on Instagram to 30,000 followers and works with food brands to provide visual content.
Working with food is very challenging in the sense that it is very time sensitive. I have to purchase it either at the market or at a store where I have to quickly work with it. If it's a perishable food, it's different from my other forms of art.
Adam understands some people may be critical of her art, seeing it as a waste of food. But she says once she's done with the art, she packs all her food to eat at home.
In Burkina Faso, the bars of the capital play the music of the legendary Buena Vista Social Club, attracting a crowd of 60 and 70-year-olds. The music's popularity in the city dates back to the time of President Thomas Sankara, who sought inspiration in the Cuba's music and revolution. This report tells how the Cuban tunes traveled to West Africa.
In the bars of Burkina Faso, the music of Cuba's legendary Buena Vista Social Club is alive and thriving. Bob Seydoux and his band, the Faso Elites, play every weekend in one of the many bars and clubs of the capital, Ouagadougou.
Us Burkinabe people like Cuban music. It takes us back to the old days, the time of our parents and our old president Thomas Sankara. May he rest in peace. He really liked Cuban tunes.
Thomas Sankara was nicknamed the African Che Guevara. He became a figurehead of the anti-imperialist and Pan-Africanist movements. Sankara led Burkina Faso from 1983, before he was betrayed and assassinated in 1987. At this time, when many African nations were moving on from decades of colonial rule, Cuban music, with its links to the revolutionary politics of Fidel Castro, struck a chord. During Sankara's time in office, many people went to Cuba for education. In exchange, many Cubans traveled to Burkina Faso. Political advisors, soldiers...
Boris Johnson has won the elections in UK. Now let's go live where he is addressing in UK.
To all that nonsense. And we will get Brexit done on time by the 31st of January. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. Leaving the European Union as one United Kingdom, taking back control of our laws, borders, money, our trade, immigration system, delivering on the democratic mandate of the people. And at the same time, this one nation Conservative government will massively increase our investment in the NHS, the health service that represents the very best of our country, with this single beautiful idea that whoever we are, rich, poor, young, old, the NHS is there for us when we are sick. And every day that service performs miracles. And that is why the NHS is this one nation Conservative government's top priority. And so we will deliver 50,000 more nurses and 50 million more GP surgery appointments. And how many new hospitals? 40. Correct. And we will deliver long-term NHS budget enshrined in law, 650 million extra every week. Health Secretary, and all the other priorities that you, the people of this country, voted for. Record spending on schools, an Australian-style points-based immigration system, more police. How many? 20,000. Colossal new investments in infrastructure, in science, using our incredible technological advantages to make this country the cleanest, greenest on earth, with the most far-reaching environmental programme. And you, the people of this country, voted to be carbon neutral in this election. You voted to be carbon neutral by 2050, and we'll do it. You also voted to be Corbyn neutral by Christmas, by the way, and we'll do that too. You voted for all these things, and it is now this government, this people's government, it's our solemn duty to deliver on each and every one of those commitments. And it is a great and heavy responsibility, a sacred trust for me, for every newly elected Conservative MP, for everyone in this room and everyone in this party. And I repeat that in winning this election, we have won votes and the trust of people who have never voted Conservative before, and people who have always voted for other parties. Those people want change. We cannot, must not let them down. And in delivering change, we must change too. We must recognise the incredible reality that we now speak as a one-nation Conservative party, literally for everyone from Woking to Workington, from Kensington, I'm proud to say, to Clwyd South, from Surrey Heath to Sedgefield, from Wimbledon to Wolverhampton. And as the nation hands us this historic mandate, we must rise to the challenge and to the level of expectations. And Parliament must change so that we in Parliament are working for you, the British people. And that is what we will now do, isn't it? Yeah. That is what we will now do. Let's go out and get on with it. Let's unite this country. Let's spread opportunity to every corner of the UK with superb education, superb infrastructure and technology. Let's get Brexit done But first, my friends, let's get breakfast done too. Thank you all. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you all very much. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done, everybody.
That was Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who has just won the UK general election, and he was addressing people and media and the world, and he specifically talked about getting Brexit done as soon as possible and delivering on the democratic mandate of people. He specifically talked about the National Health Service and achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Now let's go live. Now let's go towards the business stories. The European Central Bank has kept its interest rates unchanged. The decision was made during ECB President Christine Lagarde's first monetary policy meeting in Frankfurt. The bank slightly lifted its 2020 inflation forecast to nearly 1%, expecting it to climb nearly 2% by 2022. Lagarde said the ECB will launch the year-long strategy review in January next year. Asian stock markets are trading higher over speculation that Washington and Beijing have agreed to a Phase 1 trade deal in principle. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 has gained over 2.5% as shares of index heavyweight fast retailing soared above 3.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is trading over 2% higher as shares Tencent and HSBC soared over 2%. Seoul's Kospi has gained 1.5%, bowed by shares in SK Hing surging more than 5%. The Shanghai Composite is trading nearly 1.5%, with investors upbeat over the expected trade deal. Meanwhile, the international Brent crude oil prices have also surged over 0.75% ahead of the expected agreement. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.